Hello everyone and Happy New Year. It's myself, Jack, and Dave.
Hello.
Once again for the Platform 1 New Year 2021 special. You might have caught us recently on our Christmas Day special where we took a look back at some of the best releases and news from across 2020. But now we're looking forward to the next year of releases.
We are indeed. We're now in 2021 and we've already seen some fantastic new announcements coming through which are scheduled to be released this year. We've seen some great project updates from items announced back in 2020 and we'll be covering a huge amount of those in today's session across all the different scales, covering all the major manufacturers such as Hornby and Dapol and our own exclusive projects in there too. We'll be putting links in the description for everything you need to know about these models. We aren't here live today, as you've possibly guessed already, but feel free to talk about these subjects in the chat and leave a comment on the video and we'll answer any questions as soon as we can. So let's get started.
Let's get started. I mean, as you can probably imagine, there are just so many new items coming up and so many things to talk about that we can't possibly talk about everything in this video. So do make sure to go out and check our website, hattonstock.uk, for all the latest news on every new item, every new announcement that we're getting hold of. It does go into our news section. You can also sign up for email alerts on different products and we'll send them straight to your box too. Of course, we do post about all the latest projects over on our social media channels as well. And we do cover these in videos on our YouTube channel as well. So that's always they're always the best places to check out too. But we will cover. We've got a lot to cover today anyway.
We have indeed. I think we've got about 40 plus different releases here to cover today. And like you said, that's not the half of it either. I really do recommend heading over to our website and the project updates page there to really stay in tune with these projects as they carry on throughout this new year. So let's start with Hornby, as we are expecting something in 4 days' time, aren't we? On the 5th of January, it will be the 2021 announcements.
That's it. So we're not too sure, obviously, as you know, we're kept guessing just as much as you guys are. The latest catalogue is available to pre-order now on our website for £9.99. So you can place your pre-order for that now. And as soon as that comes into stock, we'll get that shipped out to you. But of course, we'll be covering all of the new announcements online on the 5th of January. So do make sure to join us for those.
And we'll be covering those right from 10 o'clock when the items are announced. We'll have them on our social media and our website as soon as possible. So keep your eyes on there and we'll see what is coming through. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what they announced there.
Me too.
Absolutely no idea what can be coming. But as we've seen from the 2020 announcements, still to come through in 2021, we've got a huge range of different items that we're looking forward to. One of the ones I'm really keen to see in the flesh is the Hush Hush, the LNER 464 locomotives.
So you can see some of the original condition locomotives on the screen right now. And these really are unique, incredible, one-of-a-kind things, aren't they? They're shaping up to be fantastic as well, as you can see from those painted samples. They are also producing them in the rebuilt conditions, which look a little bit like 8.4s, but longer.
They do have that same style on there. The original locomotive was built as an experimental icon in the late 1920s in that distinctive body style that we see there again on the original version of this locomotive, being produced in the as-carried livery in real life over on the right through to some of the proposed but never carried liveries of the named British Enterprise version and the apple green we see towards the rear there. As you mentioned correctly there, Jack, the loco was rebuilt in the 1930s into a similar streamlined style as the A4, but quite a longer version actually with the 464 rather than the 462 wheel arrangement. So a unique locomotive, especially as part of the LNER fleet. There was no other 464 tender engines in use in the UK. So it's a great thing to get as part of a collection and great to see Hornby bringing through in 2021.
Absolutely. Now, something a little different and a little bit more up to date, I should say. And something which I know a lot of you guys are really looking forward to is the Class 91 electric locomotive. Hornby have very recently shown some updated painted samples for these. As you can see, we've got the LNER color scheme right there, as well as the GNER one from the opposite side, which is the Cancer Research UK named a loco. But yeah, I know a lot of you guys are really excited to see this, as we've not had a Class 91 available for some years now, and especially with this being a new tool, and it's really exciting to see.
And this is coming through in all the major liveries carried by the class in their real lives too, from their introduction in the early 1990s in the original Intercity Swallow livery, heading right through to that final London North Eastern Railway colour scheme that the remaining locomotives in service are still in that colour scheme in 2021. all the points covered between as well. We have the GNER colour scheme from the early 2000s and one of the commemorative versions they produced in real life, the Fallen livery commemorating the soldiers and troops of both World War I and World War II. So a nice collector's piece there, but
Absolutely.
It's not just a collector's piece. It's a model that's got a huge amount of detail on there too. And again, it's one I'm really looking forward to seeing in the flesh.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one, that. In a similar sort of vein, I suppose, we've got, of course, the upcoming EMU, the new version of the Advanced Passenger Train, which you can see there. Now, this is the latest sample that Hornby has shown, which is a running sample, as you can see. And this is another one that's really shaping up to be fantastic. And it's another model that people have really been crying out for some time now, of course, with it being released way back in the late 80s, early 90s is the original version. And, of course, this is now the fully newly tooled, super high detail, as you'd expect from a 2021 model.
You're spot on there, Jack, and it is a model that's been absent from Hornby's range for quite a few years now. A lot of people have been wanting a super detailed variation of this iconic multiple unit, and it's coming through in various different train packs with additional coaches able to be ordered to make the full sets. If you head over to the link in the description, you'll also be able to see a full formations guide there for you. Unfortunately, these sets never really got going in real life, but they could well have done. And they were seen quite regularly throughout the 1980s in test trains and in use on the West Coast Main Line too. So it really is one of the British icons, maybe not as successful as it could have been, but the model's certainly shaping up to be very successful indeed. And that will be with us in summer this year.
Looking forward to that one. Right, I think we're going to move on to Dapol now. And there's just so many different releases coming from Dapol. We've really had to condense down what we could bring you in today's video. So we've given you a little bit of a snapshot of what is to come this year from Dapol, but there is plenty more to discover on our website too. And of course, if there is any other new items that come up or any other updates, we will cover those in videos, on our website, in emails, on social media, everywhere possible. So we're going to kick it off, I think, with the JHA aggregate wagons, as you can see on screen right now.
These are coming through very, very soon indeed. They're actually expected with us within the next month or so. These are some of the decorated samples that you see here. There's actually two different types of these wagons that you'll see coming up on the screen now. There is what is known as the inner and outer wagons. You'll see the Buckeye coupling there connecting the wagons together as part of a train. Then the end vehicles, seen on the right, actually have conventional buffers and NEM couplings for hauling by your favourite locomotive. There is actually two different prices on these, and that covers the inner and outer versions. There's a couple of little different details, but what's got to be a first for me, certainly on the 00 wagon scene, is the outer vehicle actually has a 6-pin decoder socket on it. And it also has a working tail lamp, whether you are an analog or a digital modeler. So that price point's explained then. It's £46 for the outer wagons or £38.25 for the inner wagons to build up a fleet.
That's it. It's another one I'm really excited to take a look at, especially when people do get those full rakes up and running with those working tail lamps on the end too. As you can see from those samples, these are early samples, I must stress, so there may be some differences from these to the final release models that we'll see, but these are pretty close, to be honest. You can see there that they're shaping up to be absolutely phenomenal. The level of detail present is just absolutely off the chain. Livery applications, stupendous. And of course, as Dave said, we've got some really special features coming in there, such as the digital controlled lighting on the outer ones. And of course, just tremendous running quality as well, as we've come to expect from Dapol's 00 gauge stock.
You're spot on there. And over the last 4 or 5 years or so, Dapol's got a real name for bringing through high-quality modern image wagons, such as the HIA aggregate hoppers in both 00 and N gauge, and quite a few other wagons extending to their O gauge range too, including the Turbots, which were released at the end of last year, and the bogie bolster wagons, which we should be expecting in the first part of this year too. So these are shaping up to be another part of that stellar cast of wagons coming through from Dapol. But it's not just wagons that are being brought through. As you mentioned, there's a bit of everything with Dapol across all 3 major scales: steam, diesel, electric. Have you any preference where we go next?
Let's do a bit of steam era stuff, I think. Yeah, because it's another area where Dapol, as you say, has really started to make a name for themselves. Of course, we've recently seen the release of the Mogul locomotive at the end of last year, which absolutely blew most people away, I reckon, in terms of just the quality of the running of it, amazing detail, and some really nice ease of use features that Dapol's brought through into the double O gauge scene, such as the tool-free DCC installation inside the smoke box, and of course that magnetic coupling between the body and the tender, which was really fantastic to see. But of course, there's quite a lot of other steam locos due from Dapol, including the large Prairie locomotive, as you can see on screen right now.
So we're really hoping to see, and we thoroughly expect to see, a lot of those innovative features carried over on this familiar Great Western design here. Quite a lot of these coming through from the various liveries between the 1920s and their withdrawal in the 1960s and preservation too. The latest we've got from Dapol is this CAD design image showing some of the latest amendments that we see here. We are expecting some samples of this very, very soon indeed, so we'll look forward to sharing those with you too. But this is looking like a great model in itself. It'll fully complement the Great Western Mogul, which was released at the back end of 2020. And as Jack said, there've been some rave reviews for that out there too. Another model we're looking forward to seeing more of in 2021 is a further extension of the Great Western range, and this is the Manor locomotive. So this is the familiar 460 tender engine, developed in the 1930s, some built by the Great Western Railway and some built by British Rail in the 1950s too.
That's it. We've not heard too much on this release just yet. It was announced sort of mid to late last year, but we know a few details about what locomotives that are going to be produced as part of that, which you can pre-order now on our website. And we have had some specifications through from Dapol, and it is shaping up to be quite another high-spec release, just like the other recent steam locomotives. But I've got to say, it is really looking really bright for a Great Western model this year. So that is really great to see.
It really is at the moment, with the Prairie, the 43XX, and the Manor, the locomotives that haven't been available in ready-to-run form in a fully super detailed model for quite some time now. So you Great Western modelers out there really have some gap filling to do when these are released, or if you want to pick up one of the 43XXs, you can do that right now with them being released just a couple of months ago.
That's it.
So heading over to the modern image side as well, we have some great new releases coming through in double O gauge. We've already seen the JHA hoppers that are coming through, but heading over to the diesel locomotives, we have the really eagerly anticipated Class 59 in the 4 distinct colour schemes that you see here.
That's it. So you can see the painted samples from Dapol that we've got on screen right now. These are the 4 different liveries that they're going to be producing. So you've got Foster Yeoman in the top left, you've got Arc Yellow and Grey on the right, you've got DB Schenker, which is a bit more familiar there, on the bottom left, and of course the very striking National Power colour scheme with that sort of very odd whitey grey sort of underframe coloration there, which is a bit more unusual. And this is another one that's shaping up to be an absolute barnstormer of a model, really, in terms of specifications. You've got full digital capability in there, great lighting control, obviously can have a really strong motor for pulling some really long freight trains there too. And quite an unusual feature that we're getting through with this one is you can actually order this with a smoke emitter fitted to it, which is digital control. So I think this might be one of the first times that we've actually stopped a ready-to-run loco pre-fitted with a smoke generator.
It's one of the first ones I've seen since quite a bit of the technology from the 1960s and 1970s maybe, but this will be a completely different beast with fully synchronized smoke in there too. And just to mention on the 59, it's also another locomotive that hasn't had a super detailed model made available. No. We're actually going right back to the Lima 00 Class 59 for the previous model of this loco, which back in the 1990s was a fantastic model for its time, but right here in 2021, this super detailed locomotive you can see here with the rotating axle boxes and all the features that Jack has just mentioned there too is something that we're really looking forward to.
The beauty of this model as well is it's perfect to pair with the JHA aggregate hoppers that we showed you earlier. So, of course, that Foster Yeoman livery will be absolutely perfect to run with those. Plenty of other wagons that you can run with these locomotives as well, as a lot of them are actually still running now, even though they've been in use for, gosh, over 30 years now at least. And of course, there's plenty of other locomotives that are happy to run alongside them, such as our own Hatton's Originals, Class 66, and many more too.
It's a great gap filler for those of you who've got your modern image collection with so many locomotives filling there now. If you've wanted a super detailed 59, maybe it's the last part of your collection, the last piece of the jigsaw, it really is time to pick one of these up now. We're expecting them in the summer at the moment. That date is subject to change, and you can pre-order them right now if you click that link in the description for $131.71. But let's go smaller.
Let's do
think.
it.
Let's
I
head
think so.
down to Engage, because Engage modelers have got a huge amount of releases coming through this year from Dapol too. We've got some new toolings coming through there and some reliveries, very similar to what we saw at the back end of 2020, with so many reliveries coming through, including the HSTs in brand new colour scales. But the first one I want to make a brief mention of is the Bullied Pacific from Dapol. This is something, again, we've not heard too much about this at the moment. It is something we're expecting to find out a lot more on in 2021. And as soon as we do, we'll be featuring in that on our website. But we already have some specification details and the intended colour schemes and liveries covering the streamlined Light Pacific variation of the Bullied Pacific. So keep an eye on our website and, of course, our Facebook page and YouTube channel for a little bit more info on that.
That's it. I mean, there's been so many Engage updates from Dapol at the end of 2020 that I could barely keep up with them myself. There's just been that many coming through. Lots of new batches for popular items coming through. There's a lot of new Steam and Modern Era wagons coming through.
Yes.
And another one that people have really been missing for quite a while is the Class 221 Super Voyager, which we will be seeing a new batch of within, I believe, the next quarter or two. So we should have some more details on those soon. They are going to be producing those in Virgin livery once again. The newer flowing silk color scheme, as well as cross country, and also the current Avanti version as well. So that's going to be really exciting to see that diesel electric multiple unit coming back into the range. But of course, some other old favourites are coming back, such as the Class 50, which is going to have a new batch due this year. And as you can see, there is quite a few colour schemes coming back. We've got the favourites in BR Blue, large logo. We've also got Rail Freight down there and Network Southeast as well. So it's going to be great to see these ones back in the range.
And some of these are coming through for the first time on this model too. We've got the particular livery variation on the popular large logo colour scheme with 50046 Ajax there. This time with the black roof on top, as you saw it in the late 1980s and early 1990s. We have the one-off Rail Freight General colour scheme right down there in the bottom left. And of course, 50018 in the revised Network Southeast colour scheme too. So it's the first time for some of these liveries featuring on this particular model. We do still have some of the other locomotives available to order right now too, including the original BR Blue and the original Network Southeast colour schemes from the 1960s and the 1980s. But it's great to see Dapol fill in some of the gaps with this popular model, so you can have more Class 50s performing different duties on your Engage layout too.
That's it. Well, we shrunk down to N, so should we jump back past 00 and go straight up to O?
Go all the way to O.
Yeah,
that sounds good
it.
to me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking bubble cars.
Yeah, we've not talked about too many DMUs yet, so there's quite a few new multiple units coming through this year from Dapol. First of all, we've got the Class 122. Is that the Class 122 or the 121?
It's the 121.
That's the 121. I always get confused with these two. So we are getting both the Class 121 and 122 from Dapol this year. We've got the 121 in BR Green, as you can see on screen right now. But of course, there is the 122 as well in BR Blue and Grey. So there is quite a few different variations of these due. Initially due towards the end of last year, but obviously with different timescales coming through due to COVID and things like that, we are going to see these in early 2021 now. But there are quite a few different variations coming, covering the full lifespan of these quite popular multiple units.
And they're a great way to get started on a minimum space O-gauge layout too, with the units coming in at just over a foot in length. So you can have a very small diorama, such as a 4-foot board here that you see in front of us, or you can, of course, incorporate one on a larger layout too. These single car trains were seen out on the main lines just as much as they were on branch lines, so you can really fit them in with your collection. We've got a huge amount of detail on there too. We've got a powerful 5-pole motor in there, full digital and lighting capacity with interior lights and controllable head code lights and tail lights on there too.
Beauty of these is you're pretty much getting an entire train in one package here. One bubble car that can just be shuttling up and down, doing its duties on a small branch line, or even as part of a main line too. And the beauty of these is they're coming through at just £254.50 each. So when you think about it, that is a really great deal for an entire train in one package.
It's not much more than a coach, is it, really?
Exactly,
so
yeah.
It really does start to come out at a cracking price. Now, maybe they're too modern for you. Maybe you do want to join the railcar revolution, but green and blue and grey, a little bit too modern for your theme. Maybe you've been picking up some of the Great Western locomotives that have been available in O gauge, but we've got something for you too. Have a look at Dapol's Gloucester Streamlined railcar we see here. This was a very late in 2020 announcement, but one that was very welcome to be seen.
Absolutely. This one's shaping up to be an absolute lovely model. As you can see from these painted samples here, the intricate livery application is just splendid. Some really nice interior design there. Of course, these have got really big passenger saloon windows, so they really had to go to town on the interior too. As you can see, they've replicated the sort of upholstery on the seating there to make it look really nice. And again, like with the bubble cars, these are going to have a really high specification, of course, with full interior lighting present in there. I believe cab lighting too, which will all be separately controllable, directional lighting in there as well. Really smooth, powerful motor, everything you'd expect from a modern O-gauge multiple unit.
And these Art Deco units were introduced in the 1930s in real life, transforming express business travel as well as local passenger duties on branch lines. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about these and their introduction, we have got a video on our YouTube and Facebook pages going through the whole history of the Great Western Railway's railcar fleet. So if you really like the look of that model and you need a little bit of inspiration, head over there now and do check out that video. So as we said, with the Great Western Railcar, we've got you covered if you think British Rail's a little bit too modern. What have we got if you think the Great Western Railway's a little bit too modern?
If we're going about that far, it's pre-grouping, of course, and Dapol's even got you covered for that. And it is, of course, with their LB-SCR Stroudley four-wheel coaches. This is another one that was announced towards the tail end of 2020 to much applause from the O-gauge community. And it's great to see some more pre-grouping items coming through. Of course, this will complement some of the pre-existing locomotives and some other stock that are out there. And you can see the first engineering samples on the screen right now. Of course, as these are initial samples, there will be some changes to be made prior to release, so it won't be fully representative of the final models, but these are shaping up to be fantastic. And even from those EPs, they're looking pretty nice, these, aren't they? They
are indeed, and this is a model of the popular Stroudley coaches that were introduced towards the 1880s and 1890s. Fantastic to be paired with locomotives already available in O-gauge, such as Dapol's own London Brighton South Coast Terrier 060s, and of course you can get them in some of the other liveries too, those particular locomotives. These will initially be being provided in the London Brighton South Coast Railway colours themselves. Two different versions. You've got the mainline and the suburban versions. The suburban versions not having buffers fitted to them, so they can close couple and you can fit more coaches onto your suburban platforms. But it's great to see Dapol going to that level of detail and catering for both types there.
Totally agree. And coming in at just £93.50, as you can see, again, from those samples, just really high levels of detail for what is a great price point. And of course, again, you don't really need that many coaches to run a train like this. A branch line train with a Terrier or another locomotive like that, you could get away with just 2 or 3 coaches for quite a realistic looking train there. So you don't need to have a huge guard mile to run one of these.
So what we're looking at here really is almost, well, pretty much over 100 years of O-gauge micro layout possibilities. Right from the start with the London Brighton South Coast coaches we saw covering from the 1890s onwards there, heading through the Great Western Railway rail cars from the 1930s to the 1960s, and then we pick up the bubble cars, of course, which then cover you from the 1960s right through to the late 1990s, the very early 2000s in some cases. Those original rail cars worked on too. So if you are thinking of starting a micro layout in O-gauge, again, we've got a little video on our channel which could give you some ideas there, but 2021 is the year to do it.
Totally agree. And of course, on that sort of topic, there is also some new Ginties coming through from Dapol and O-gauge as well. So kind of heading back to those quite early days on the railways there. This is a new batch coming through in quite a few different colour schemes, including some quite unusual ones. I believe on screen right now, we've got the Ulster Transport Authority version, which is something I don't think we see very often in Double O, let alone O-gauge.
I think, and I'm willing to be corrected here, so please do put your comments in the chat, I think this is the first ready-to-run O-gauge locomotive based on an Irish prototype.
I think you might be right there.
I can't think that I've seen any more out there, really. And 2 of these Ginty locomotives were transferred over onto the London Midland Scottish Railways network in Northern Ireland during World War II, and then appeared in this variation of the LMS colour scheme that you see here again on the screen now. So it is something quite unusual, but at the same time, they are producing them in conventional liveries across both the London Midland Scottish and British Rail colour schemes too. We're expecting those in the spring of this year, and you can pre-order them right now for £191.25.
Again, another really great entry point if you're looking to start getting into O gauge. Of course, nice small locomotive, but still packed with plenty of detail and plenty of features there. And of course, it's perfect to match with a lot of the pre-existing stock and coaches that are already available, so you can get up and running really quickly.
Yes. So I think that rounds us up for Dapol. And just again to mention what you said at the start of our Dapol coverage there, this is just a small selection of what is coming through. There's a huge amount more new tooling models, reliveries, different wagons coming through in new colour schemes all the time too. So make sure to keep an eye on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and of course our newsletters and website for all the latest information on every single release that we have covered here today.
That's it.
So
where should we shine a spotlight next? Should we go for Oxford Rail?
I think we should go for Oxford Rail. Again, we're seeing some great new models coming through throughout 2021 from Oxford Rail. And the first one to take a look at is both the J26 and the J27 North Eastern Railway 060s.
Now, we got a bit of a closer look at the painted samples for these last year, and these are shaping up to be absolutely fantastic locomotives, especially for the price point that these are coming in at just between £93.50 and £94 for these locomotives, which for that size of tender loco is really quite an impressive price, especially as you can see from the level of detail that we're going to be getting here. Of course, you've got a fully painted, fully detailed cab there. You've got the tender rails. You've got plenty of detail on the side of the smoke box, plenty of underframe detail. I believe sprung buffers on there too. All the features you'd expect from a fully priced high-spec model, but coming in at under £100 for this size of loco is quite a feat.
And they are being developed alongside. There's a huge amount of similarity between the J26 and the J27 in real life. Although the J27 was announced by Oxford Rail originally, the popularity of the locomotives and the requests for the J26 too, Oxford did heed the call there. And there's between them 7 different variations of these locomotives coming through, either with or without digital sound recorded from the preserved Class J27 locomotive.
That's it. We are hoping to see further updates on this model pretty soon. I'd imagine we might see some newer production samples in the next few months, and they will be released later in 2021. So really looking forward to seeing both of these prototypes in action.
So Oxford Rail are also filling a lot of gaps when it comes to freight rolling stock too. Although the locomotives are the really nice shiny thing we like to see at the front of a train, having freight stock available is just as important, and they are covering this with a few brand new models, including one of the first new pre-grouping super detail wagons here, the Great Eastern Railway 10-ton van.
Yeah, this was quite a surprise announcement from Oxford in 2020. Of course, you can see the CAD image on the screen right now, and it's another one that we should be hoping to see some further updates on very soon in 2021. But it was quite an interesting one to see such a pre-grouping design coming through. But of course, this was an incredibly numerous design of wagon, and it saw use for quite a number of years. So it's appropriate for quite a wide variety of layouts, isn't it?
So it starts right back off in the pre-grouping era with the Great Eastern Railway designing and constructing this vehicle in the early 20th century, and they lasted right through the London North Eastern Railway era into British Rail era of the 1950s and 1960s, and variations are being produced in all of those liveries too. So whether you're a modeler from the early 1910s, 1920s, heading right through era 3 and the Big Four, up to British Railways in the 50s and 60s, Oxford have you covered with this particular wagon.
That's it. Another great thing about this model is the price point, again, is just £13 these are coming in for. So that means for under £100, you could have a really impressive long rake of these wagons, which is quite a bargain, really, when you consider the level of detail that you're going to be getting and the length of train that you could produce with these.
So I think the next wagon that they're bringing through, the only thing I think it's got in common, well, 2 things it's got in common is 1, it's double O gauge, and 2, it's also £13. Otherwise, it couldn't really be much different, I think.
I was going to say, we're going completely different here. This is one of the BR's own designs of pilchard wagon, which I believe was used for spoil and engineering duties. Again, you can see we've got the latest CAD images there that were supplied by Oxford Rail last year. And this is another one that we should be seeing some more news on in 2021. Of course, these were mostly used by British Rail, but still for quite a number of years. It was one of those sort of designs that it sort of just plucked away in the background. It wasn't really a big, fanfare. It wasn't an exceptionally important design, but it was there doing its job every day of the week. Really important wagon for various engineering duties, and it's fantastic to see this quiet behind the riot sort of wagon coming into the range.
You've got it spot on there. I think when this model was announced back in 2020, a few people had to get the history books out to find out what a pilchard wagon was. But as soon as people did start doing the research out there, even ourselves, when we were looking at promoting these items to you, you do see them all over the place. They do start to appear. They were originally built in 1951 and spread all over the UK's railway network through the steam and diesel eras, running right through to the 1980s. It's something you don't see until you know about it, and then when you do recognise them, you can't escape them, really. They are everywhere on the network. And again, a bogie wagon coming in for £13 is an incredible price point for this particular vehicle. You'll have a couple of different tooling variations on there too, initially coming through in the 1950s colour schemes, but we may get more from Oxford there in the future. Indeed, that may be something they announce at their announcements due very soon indeed.
Hopefully. And another, again, just like with the GER van that we just took a look at, it means it's really easy to get a very long, very impressive rake of wagons onto your layout for quite a cheap price. Again, under £100, you could have probably about 9 wagons there. And it is really impressive how many you could get on there for quite a cheap price.
So all of those items are available to pre-order right now, and we are expecting further announcements from Oxford Diecast sometime in January. As soon as we've got the confirmed date for that, we will be featuring it on our website and our Facebook page too. That covers mainly the diecast range, so all the latest cars, buses, planes across all the different scales, HO, double O, O gauge and N in there too. As soon as we have more information on exactly when that announcement will be, we'll put it on our social media and in our newsletter too. So keep an eye on that for more fantastic, great Oxford diecast vehicles coming through for rail and road.
That's it. Well, we haven't really talked about anything from Heljan yet, so I think we'll go down to them next.
And where do you start?
Where do you start, indeed? I mean, Heljan at the tail end of last year actually gave quite a bumper list of updates on various projects. So they've given a lot of date changes and given us a bit of a clearer picture on when a lot of items are coming through. So again, do check out our website because all of our articles and all of the products are always, we try to keep them as up to date as possible with all the latest dates for the things coming through. But in terms of things that are coming through pretty soon, one that's been really sought after for a long time is the newly tooled model of the Class 25/3. And of course, the Ethel train heating units that were derived from that, which I'm sure Dave will be able to give you a little bit more history about.
So this is a downscaling, although it has had a lot of work carried out to the Model 2, of the O-gauge model that Heljan released a couple of years ago now. This is the later body style of the familiar Class 25 locomotives, built in the mid-1960s, seeing service the last ones until the early 1990s, with many of these popular locomotives surviving into preservation too. So they got a huge enthusiast following throughout the 1980s, and that's remained throughout their preservation lives too.
Well, these were called rats, weren't they? Because they literally got all over the place, just like real rats do. So again, makes it perfect for all manner of layouts then, doesn't it?
That's it. And they really did do everything too. You could find them on express trains with a pair of locomotives on trains such as the Cambrian Coast Express, especially in the 1980s. You could find them on engineers' duties, maybe with the pilchard wagon that we've just mentioned there too. You could find them on local passenger duties, sometimes heavy freight if they were needed. These were a go anywhere, do anything locomotive. And Heljan's model really will be a go anywhere, do anything model too, with a huge amount of detail being crammed into this Type 2 locomotive. You've got working lights, you've got digital socket. I mean, what haven't you got, Jack?
I don't think there's much that's been omitted on this one, really. As you can see from these samples as well, you can just about see in the cab there, tremendous level of cab detail in there too. You've got very nice etched grills on there as well, plenty of underframe detail. They have gone to town on this locomotive, and I'm really going to be excited to see one in the plastic, so to speak, or the metal. I'm sure there's quite a lot of die-cast metal on this model too. But yeah, it's shaping up to be an absolute barnstormer, that one.
And whilst you can pre-order them, you don't have long to wait at all now. They are due in the next couple of months or so. We've got the exact release dates on our website for the specific variations and versions, whether you want an original BR green locomotive right through to the later BR blue and the weathered colour schemes there too. If you click that link in the description, you'll find out more information on those models. But we've also got electrics to cover too. It's not just diesels from Heljan at the moment, and that will be the Class 86.
Well, you can see one of the early samples here, what we've got on screen right now, covering the very early sort of experimental BR blue colour scheme that was originally used on these with the original emblem there. And again, this is another one that Heljan's gone absolutely to town on. You can see the level of detail there. You've got your posable metal pantograph on the roof, loads of underframe details. You've got full cab detail in there, sprung buffers, digital capability. Everything you could ever want on a locomotive packed into this 86. And it's another one that you're not going to have to wait too long for. I believe it's due between Q1 and Q2 of this year. So shouldn't be too long to wait.
And this again is, I think 2021 has to be the year of filling gaps. It really does. We've seen so many in today's session so far that are filling gaps for modelers where models have not been available before, or super detail models coming back after many, many years. And this is the first super detail model of the Class 86s as built too. There's a few out there in later conditions, but for those of you who want one of these in the 1960s conditions and the 1970s conditions, this is the time to get one with a super detail model, both in the original BR blue colour scheme, as mentioned by Jack, and also coming through in the BR blue with full yellow end variations too.
If those variations are a little bit too early for you, Heljan is also producing the later Class 86-4 and 86-6 variations, covering liveries right through to the current generation of them still in use with Freightliner, Caledonian Sleeper, which I believe were withdrawn fairly recently, but they were still fairly up to date there, but quite a few other liveries too. They'll be due a little bit later in 2021, I believe maybe into 2022, so they might have a little bit longer to wait on those, but we should be seeing some more information on those throughout 2021 as well, maybe some new samples too.
So heading over to 009, it's another great year for narrow gauge coming through there too. From Heljan, we have the model that's coming through of Lynn. This is the final piece in the chain for Linton and Barnstaple modelers who may already have the coaches, wagons and Manning Wardle locomotives. Now it's the last piece of the puzzle. It's the Baldwin 242.
I was going to say, this really is the icing on the cake for L&B modelers. Of course, we've already got Heljan's Linton and Barnstaple 262 locomotive in the ranging all manner of different colour schemes. They've really covered practically every variation there's ever been. Again, with the 242, they're pretty much doing the same again. We've got loads of different colour schemes coming through, including the original L&B green colour schemes. We've got Southern coming through. So there is quite a few different variations that they've chosen to cover. Of course, of those original build Lynn locomotives. And this really pairs nicely with a lot of Pico rolling stock that we have available too. So, of course, Pico have produced plenty of Linton and Barnstaple coaches. But, of course, with it being narrow gauge, you can get a little bit freelance with these sort of things because, obviously, the coaches, especially in preservation, tend to move around quite a lot. There are a lot of freelance coaches out there, which you can use, a lot of four-wheel coaches, things like that. But there are a lot of nice Festiniog rolling stock also coming through in 009. So especially with this new 242 coming out, it is a really exciting time if you guys are modeling narrow gauge.
And you can see here again, it's the level of detail that we would expect from Heljan, with pretty much everything pre-fitted to this locomotive, including the buffer beam pipework, the characteristic headlamps there too. We have a look in the big USA style cab with this locomotive being designed by Baldwin of USA. It's a completely different design to what you'd see in the UK at the end of the 19th century. So that big cab there, as with other vehicles we've shown on today's stream, needs a huge amount of detail in it, and it has got a huge amount of detail in it too. So we're expecting those towards the end of February, early March, and you can pre-order any one of those 6 liveries coming through for £203.96 right now.
Do make sure to use that link in the description as well to check them out on our website, and you can have a look at the latest painted samples that we've got on there too to really get a closer insight into what these are going to be like. But again, they are shaping up to really nice, these ones, as you could see from the photo earlier of that southern liveried locomotive. There is some fantastic livery application going on there, some really nice wood grain beading around the windows, of course separately fitted lamp on the front there too, and I believe there are quite a few different tooling variations to fully make sure that every little variation is completely correct.
There are indeed. They cover the whole life of this locomotive from its construction in 1898, the scrapping of the original in 1935, and then the rebuild replica locomotive, which is now in service on the Linton and Barnstaple Railway too.
Yeah.
So, heading big again, we're going back to O-Gauge for a moment. Heljan's bringing through so many O-Gauge releases. It's really hard to keep track. We've got a lot of familiar locomotives making a return this year, including the Class 37, the Class 31, other locos coming through too. But we've also got new toolings in the range. And the first one of those we're going to see this year is the Class 17, which should be with us within the next month or so.
That's it. So Heljan's model of the Clayton, you can see on screen right now. This is obviously going to be our blue variant, which we've got a painted sample of, but there are some other colour schemes coming through as well. And this kind of follows on from the popularity of their double O-Gauge release. Of course, the Class 17 in real life was a bit of an oddity, really. I mean, obviously, just taking one look at it, you can kind of see that with its very strange centre-mounted cab and very long bonnet ends, which was quite unusual for a UK locomotive, especially at that time. In real life, they did have a few issues and struggled on for a few years. But they did see quite a lot of service, particularly in the Scotland region. So it's perfect for quite a lot of different layouts, even despite not being a mega successful locomotive.
And with one engine surviving in preservation today too, you can still see a Clayton out there in real life. And of course, with this model coming through from Heljan, you can have one in O-Gauge too. It's been part of Heljan's Double O range for about 10 years now, with several different releases keeping it as a popular locomotive, and it's certainly set to be just as popular in O-Gauge there too. It's very unusual design with the huge centre cab that we see here, not too familiar on UK locomotives. So if you do fancy something a little different on your O-Gauge layout, you can pick up any of the 4 of these available to pre-order right now, starting at $466.65 for those as a pre-order price.
That's it. But if you're looking for something a bit more numerous or a bit more modern, Heljan's got you covered there too. And that's with a brand new batch of their very popular Class 60 locomotives. Now, this is really going to be helping to cover a lot of you guys who are into the modern image O-Gauge modeling, which is becoming a lot more popular at the moment. So, of course, as you can see there right at the top, we've got the bang up-to-date GBRF colour scheme. We've also got unbranded DB in there. Kappa group of companies with DC Rail as well. But then going back a little bit later, you've got Load Haul from the 90s, DC Rail Freight in there too, Rail Freight unbranded, and also the one-off GWR green commemorative colour scheme there as well. So quite a few different unusual liveries coming through from this one. So some really nice ones to stand out on your modern image O-Gauge layout.
And as you said, the Heljan 60 has had many people asking for it to return to the range. It will complement the Class 56, which we're also seeing come through from Heljan this year as a new tooling. And those modern heavy freight locomotives really are starting to make their mark on the O-Gauge market out there too. You don't need a huge layout to be able to operate these. You can have a fantastic depot layout in a small space if you wish with some of these heavy freight locomotives. But as Jack mentioned there, deliveries here cover the entire life of the Class 60, from the Rail Freight Triple Grey when they were first introduced in the late 1980s and early 1990s, right through to some liveries we've seen come into play in 2020 last year, with the GB Rail Freight, the Kappa and DC Rail Freight featured on these particular models too. So we'll be looking forward to seeing those come through in the summer. They're available to pre-order right now for £551 if you'd like to pick one up.
That's it. Now, it's not just freight locomotives we're seeing from Heljan either. We're also seeing some passenger stock too, in the form of their Class 117 DMU. Now, this is coming through in both 2-car and 3-car variations for £551.65 for the 2-car or £806.65 for the 3-car. You can see the initial engineering sample on the screen there. Of course, this is quite an early sample, so there will be a lot of changes to still be made to that. And we hope to see some livery samples within the next few months, I would imagine. We have seen a working sample from Heljan as well, which showed off some of the lighting features. It will have full interior lighting cab lighting, directional lighting on there as well. And of course, all the other features that you would expect from a brand new O-gauge DMU. But this is, again, as you said before, it is going to be the year of gap fillers. There's not been that many of these sort of larger DMUs coming through in O-gauge, and the 117, as quite a numerous, well-traveled class, is going to be a very welcome addition indeed, and really does help to fill another gap there.
The great thing about the 117 to it is one of what's known as the high-density suburban units. You'll see there that it's got many doors and many seats on it, and both the 2 and 3 car versions were used quite heavily on suburban networks heading in London, Birmingham, and by the end of their lives into Edinburgh and Scotland too. So not only have you got a wide geographical spread, but you can have these on a really busy urban layout. But at the same time, if you wanted one on a sleepy branch line, shall I say, get my words out, you can have one on there too. So some great options there for you. And as said, this is one of the first multiple units that's actually more than one car to come through in ready to run form in O-gauge 2. So that will really be something to look forward to in the middle of 2021 when that is scheduled for release.
That's it. So as I said at the start of that section, Heljan have released quite a lot of updates towards the end of 2020 on various models, and also the release dates for plenty of their projects too. They did also make some new announcements towards the end of 2020, and I would imagine they would potentially make some more throughout 2021 as well. Also, Heljan's new catalog should be with us pretty soon. You can pre-order that on our website right now. So that gives you a full rundown of everything they're producing in 00, 009, and O-gauge as well. So that is definitely worth picking up if you want to get a good snapshot of the entire Heljan collection of locomotives, passenger stock, wagons, everything that's coming through.
So as you've seen there, we've covered a huge amount of different models across different scales, different suppliers, different eras. There really is something coming for everyone in 2021.
Totally.
Whether you want a completely brand new tooling model or you want to see the return of an old favorite to your layout, there's so much to cover. We've barely even scratched the surface today with our video. Do check out the website for full information on every single forthcoming model that we have. And of course, we've left one off today. I think we've had it here all the way through our session. It is one we know that you guys are really excited about. It is, of course, our Genesis coaches.
That's it. So our very highly anticipated Genesis 4 and 6 wheel coaches will start to be released from Q2 2021 onwards. There are all manner of liveries being produced in the first batch. I really can't stress how many different variations you guys are going to be getting. Lots of different coach types to be shown as well. Of course, we've got a few here on the desk in front of us, but of course, a few close-up samples there too. These are initial engineering samples, obviously not liveried up yet, but we should hopefully be seeing some livery samples for these within the next month or two. And of course, we will be shouting about those everywhere, so you can be sure you'll be hearing about those either on our website, through emails, social media, or wherever else you like to find your news.
But if you can't wait for those livery samples, I can't wait for those livery samples, but if you can't wait for those livery samples, do head over to our website right now. On some of the certain liveries, we have fully 3D renders that you can see. This is just one example here of the Southeastern Chatham Railway Vermilion livery that's coming through. And you are able to view these on our online viewer, and you can see them from any angle at all. This is done from the CAD designs of the coach where the liveries have been planted onto them. So this will give you a really good representation of how these coaches look when they come through.
That's it. You can totally get whatever angle you want to look at. Take a look at any part of the coach you want to. I believe some people even manage to get inside and take a look at the interiors because you guys really want to see what those look like. So do take a look and get a really in-depth insight into the coaches. You can also check out livery artwork for most of the coaches online too. We've got a few of the batch one examples here, including the lovely LMS and SR color schemes, and a couple more here in GWR and LNER brown too.
So there's something we're really looking forward to showing you more of. As Jack mentioned there, we're expecting decorated samples for these quite soon indeed, and we will let you know. They will be everywhere. We'll have them on our Facebook channel. We'll have them here on YouTube too. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'll have them on our newsletters. And of course, if you have the pre-orders for these coaches in already, we'll be sending you updates with your particular livery to let you know how those are looking. So really looking forward to sharing that with you. And of course, the coach is coming out in 2021 too.
That's it. You can pre-order all of these right now as well. If you head to the link in the description, you can get these for £30 unlit for a single coach. They are also available with working interior lighting for £36. Of course, that is digital controllable as well for all you guys on DCC. And you can also buy some special multi-packs of these coaches as well, which come with a full rake in one box, which is really great for just getting it running straight away on your layout. But as I say, every single variation is available, either standard without lighting or with working lighting as well. And we're really excited to be bringing these out for you guys to enjoy in Double O.
We can't wait to bring these through in 2021. We hope that, well, we know that you guys are really excited as much as we are about these particular models coming through. We should have more updates on the second batch of these vehicles in even more liveries for you soon too. So do keep an eye on our website to cover the Genesis coaches, but also keep an eye on everything we do for the latest information on every single model that you've seen in today's stream and more besides. We've always got latest news coming through. We have our spies out there, shall we say, almost keeping an eye on things, seeing the different notifications out there, making sure that as soon as the news is public, we can get it to you and we can share the latest developments, the latest releases, and of course the latest announcements there too. With, as we said towards the start of the stream, the next one coming in just 4 days time with Hornby's 2021 announcements.
That's it. I think us two can take a little bit of a breather now after all that. There's been, as we said at the start, there's just so many different pieces of news to talk about, so many different items coming through in 2021. We can barely cram them all into this video, so we picked a few of our favorites here for you today. As Dave says, we'll have the new Hornby announcements on the 5th of January, which we're, of course, very much looking forward to, and I'm sure you guys will be too. You can pre-order the catalogue for those now as well, so you can get the full lowdown. But, of course, we will have them straight away on the day on the 5th as well. Again, we've got plenty of different items coming through from Dapol. They're a little bit different in how their releases work, so they just give us different updates announcements all the way through the year. So there's plenty to be excited about all the way through 2021 there. With Oxford as well, they're kind of the same, so we'll have different announcements from them throughout the year too. And with Heljan, of course, their new catalogue should be with us pretty soon, and that gives you a full rundown of what they will have throughout the year. And I believe, obviously, that's not all. Obviously, of course, we've got lots of different manufacturers that we stock here at Hatton, so we will be seeing updates on plenty more throughout the year as well. And we hope you'll join us on our social media, on our YouTube channel, and on our website as well to find out about everything that's coming through.
You're absolutely spot on there, Jack. There's items that we've just not been able to squeeze into today's session. We have the Carto Engage Class 800 multiple unit coming in 2021 in Great Western and LNER liveries for Engage modelers. We have Pico's growing 009 gauge range with Festiniog locos and coaches joining the collection there too. There is more and more and more. We could certainly be here most of 2021 talking to you about the items that are coming through. It's looking like an absolutely fantastic year for modelers, whatever scale, whatever era. You have some fantastic models coming through for you.
Absolutely. So all I can really say is stay tuned. Keep on our website, keep on our social media, sign up for email alerts for any products that you're interested in, and get on our newsletters too. And we'll keep you posted with everything throughout the year. And I'm just really excited to see more.
Me too.
There's so much excitement for the model railway industry going forward, and I hope you guys are as excited as us.
And of course, you'll find it out at Hatton's first, so make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, sign up to the newsletters, and as soon as we know the latest news, you will too. So we'll see you throughout 2021. Looking forward to enjoying some great new models together, and we'll see you there. Thank you for watching.
Absolutely. Enjoy, guys. We'll see you again soon.